Hi, my name is Roger Prosise. Thank you for coming to the book reading for my memoir, Housing Projects, Mansions, and Schools, An Educator's Odyssey. My memoir begins with me going to school in Cabrini Green and then follows me as I become a teacher in the inner city of Chicago and then a school administrator, a school principal, and superintendent in the suburbs of Chicago. Back in September of 1967, my family moved out of Cabrini Green and into Lakeview. When my family moved into Cabrini Green, it was a multi-ethnic community. In fact, I remember my oldest sister having white friends. As a kid growing up in Cabrini, I didn't have any white friends. All of my friends were black. So I was at Jenner School from kindergarten through 6th grade and Cooley for 7th grade and the first month of 8th grade. And the most important years of school are the primary years and the elementary years. And, that lays the foundation. And that was laid for me at Jenner School, a high poverty inner city school. And so even though you're in a high poverty neighborhood doesn't mean you can't get an excellent education. For the most part, at least through while I was at Jenner School, Cabrini was a safe neighborhood. But it wasn't the case once I moved on to go to Cooley Upper Grade Center, which was housed in Cooley High School. On more than one occasion, when I went out for lunch, my friend Lorenzo Ellis kept me from getting beat up by the high school kids at Cooley. Back in September of 1967, my family moved out of Cabrini Green and into Lakeview. So the last Friday in September, I was a student at Cooley Upper Grade Center. And on the first Monday in October, I was a student at Blaine School. And so that Saturday, the last Saturday in September, my family moved out of Cabrini and moved into Lakeview. And so we went from a poor, all-black neighborhood at 8 o'clock Saturday morning to a middle-class white neighborhood at 8 p.m. On that Saturday. If you look at my memoir, the first chapter is, the title is 12 Hours, because again, 8 a.m. I lived in a poor black world, and at 8 p.m. I was in a middle class white neighborhood. My family moved into the second floor of a two-flat, and the first floor of that two-flat was another family, the Blasingame family. And fortunately for me, there was an 8th grade boy in the Blasingame family whose name was Mike. We became friends right away. And so on that first day, I was out exploring my new neighborhood, and I couldn't believe that my world had changed, and that I went from living in a poor neighborhood to a middle-class neighborhood literally overnight. And so if you look at my memoir, the first chapter is titled 12 Hours, and that's really what kind of lit the fire under me to write this memoir. And so I made a friend right away. His name's Mike Blasingame. He was in 8th grade like me. And so we were exploring my new neighborhood that Saturday night. And one of the things he mentioned to me, since we were both in 8th grade, he said I would have a science test on Monday, that all 8th graders were going to have a science test on Monday. Neither of us knew if I was going to have to take it because I was that would be my first day of school. So he asked me if I wanted to borrow his notes. And I said, yeah, I did borrow his notes. I wanted to do well. I wanted to make a good first impression. And so I did. So that Saturday night, I studied Mike's science notes. And Monday rolled around, and I went over to across the street to Blaine School. Me and my younger sisters went to the office to find out, our new rooms, and I found mine. And I was in 8th grade, and I went to my new class. Now Blaine had enough for 4 classes. So there were 4 8th grade classes. There was a top group, There was a bottom group, there was a next to the top, and a next to the bottom. Now, I mentioned I'm a superintendent. I was a superintendent. I was a principal, a teacher. I've written a memoir. Where do you think they placed me as a new student at Blaine? Did they put me in the top group, put me in the bottom group, next to the top, or next to the bottom? They put me in the next to the bottom class, and the teacher's name was Mr. Lesser. And so I, of course, as an 8th grader, I didn't realize, hey, they put me in the next to the bottom class. This is looking back as an adult. And so they put me in the next to the bottom class. Monday rolls around. I go and have a seat in my new 8th grade class, and the teacher tells me I'll take the test, but it won't count toward my grade. And so I took the test, and the day proceeded like any other day. I followed the class to the other subjects for that day. I lived across the street, so after school I ran home and right away turned around and ran back out to the schoolyard to play. And so the next day rolls around, and I go to class, and the teacher announces that I got the highest score in the class on the science test. And science is my worst subject. So what did that tell me? Obviously, as an adult, they put me in a class with a bunch of kids who probably, one, didn't take notes or open their science books. We carry baggage. Like I was, my baggage was I came from the wrong neighborhood and I was a poor kid, and they weren't expecting me to do well, really. And so you have to overcome that. And so really, if I'm talking to 8th graders, I'm talking to kids, it's about what baggage do you bring? And what baggage did I bring? I came from the wrong neighborhood. I came from a poor neighborhood. And if it wasn't for Mike, my friend Mike, who knows what would have happened to me in terms of being placed in the appropriate class at Blaine School. The friendship is critical. I think really kids know that. That's really not. Maybe they should be reminded that friendship is important, and not just to have friends, but to be a friend. And maybe when they're out at recess, look for the kid who's by himself or herself and try to be a friend. And so really, I moved out of Cabrini Green in 8th grade, and I had an alcoholic father who drank when we were in Cabrini Green, but once we moved into Lakeview, he stopped drinking. And so once we moved into Lakeview, I no longer lived in a poor neighborhood, and my alcoholic father stopped drinking, and I made friends right away. And so in working on my memoir, I was thinking of writing about 8th grade, but decided to extend it beyond 8th grade and kind of followed my career as an educator, as a teacher, and then as a school principal and school superintendent. The key takeaway from my book is the fact that school provides a way out of poverty. The title of my book, Housing Projects, Mansions, and Schools, An Educator's Odyssey, has that title because my life began in the housing project. And I won't say it ended in a mansion, but I did experience working in a community with mansions, basically. And as I look at the two extremes, there are some things that both extremes have in common, and those things are the importance of parent involvement, the importance of good teachers, and the importance of friendship.